Of his home. Good afternoon. The Business Secretary says rising gas prices have created a critical situation for many industries, and he has defended the government's handling of the energy crisis. Kwasi Kwarteng said he is continuing to hold talks with energy suppliers and the Treasury about possible support. The Treasury denies any talks have taken place. Our business correspondent Katie Prescott has the latest.
Catching up over Sunday brunch. In the run-up to winter, rising energy bills are a top talking point in this Leeds cafe. Not least for the owner, as making coffee gets more expensive.
I'm mainly worried that in the long term the prices won't change and there'll be this kind of idea that because we've dealt with them in this current situation we'll suddenly be normalised to the idea that that's okay to keep those prices the same.
The Business Secretary this morning wouldn't commit to extra support with energy bills for companies like this one.
I think it's a critical situation. Clearly, I'm speaking to industry, as you've said, all the time. And high gas prices, they've quadrupled this year, are making an impact. And that's why I'm, as you say, speaking to people, listening and trying to work out a way forward.
Those industries that use a lot of energy for manufacturing say the time for working out a way forward has long gone.
So if the situation is critical, which I certainly know it is, then why isn't government acting now, today, to address this problem for energy-intensive sectors such as the steel industry? Because without that help now, today, in the next week or so, then we're going to see a significant and permanent damage to the UK steel sector.
Here's just how dramatic price rises have been over the past year. While households are protected by the energy price cap, that was set when the price was 65p. It's now almost 4 times that. Companies would like to see something similar in place to protect them from global market spikes. To cushion businesses through this period, the Business Secretary said he's requested extra funds from the Treasury, a statement the Treasury denied.
There is a certain amount of kind of briefing going on behind the scenes where Kwasi Kwarteng is saying warm words, quite like this, got to get it past the Treasury. The truth is we need to have a plan and they need to get on with it. But also the truth is we shouldn't be in a situation where we wait until there's a crisis and then react.
Here, though, it's not the political ping-pong that matters, rather what the cost of energy might do to the price of a cup of tea. Katie Prescott, BBC News.
Our political correspondent Ione Wells is here. Ione, what is the government likely to do?
Well, as we've heard there, the government's under increasing pressure from these manufacturing firms to step in and support them, either through some kind of subsidies or some kind of industry price cap like we have with households. Now, this morning, Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng reiterated that he's in discussion with firms about potential solutions. Also, that £2 billion has already been given to these energy-intensive industries since 2013 to help with electricity costs, but didn't really spell out any more about what the government is doing. He denied newspaper reports this morning that he's requested billions from the Treasury to subsidise firms, but did say that he was working with the Chancellor to try and get through this situation. Interestingly, a Treasury source then said that he was mistaken and that the Chancellor hasn't been involved in any kind of talks of this kind. And I think what this really tells us is that essentially the government doesn't yet have an answer. They don't yet have some pot of cash to try and solve this. It's an ongoing discussion within government at the moment. Meanwhile, though, this pressure from the firms is growing, with some saying they're already having to halt production union. Also pressure growing from the opposition as well, with Labour today accusing the departments responsible for the cost of living of arguing over whether or not they're in talks or not, while the Prime Minister is reportedly on holiday in Marbella. So I don't think this crisis is kind of going away from the government, and certainly when the Prime Minister is back from his holiday, one of the first things that I think will be in his in tray.
Thank you, Ione. The government is to push the EU for a significant change in trading arrangements for Northern Ireland agreed under the Brexit deal. Both sides accept some level of reform is needed to the protocol, which keeps Northern Ireland in the EU's single market for goods. The EU is due to put its own proposals forward this week. Well, we can speak now to Jessica Parker in Brussels. Jessica, how far apart are the UK and the EU on this?
Well, in certain areas, pretty far. Now, there is a growing drumbeat people might have noticed around Brexit. Why? Well, back in July, the UK set out its proposals for making significant changes to the Northern Ireland Protocol. And as you say, this week, the EU is set to respond to that. And it's expected to offer up some compromises, for example, reducing checks on goods going between Great Britain to Northern Ireland, allowing the continued import of chilled meats as well, hence the headlines you might have seen about sausages. But it's not expected to shift on this issue of how the treaty is policed. The UK wants to remove the role, the oversight role of the European Court of Justice, the EU's top court. And Lord Frost, the Brexit minister, is set to say as much on Tuesday. It's a timely intervention to make that speech because the EU's going to set out its proposals on Wednesday. Talks are then expected to start, but things are already looking tough.
Thank you, Jessica. A new study from the Natural History Museum has found that the UK only has around half of its biodiversity left, making it one of the most nature-depleted places in the world. Researchers said there was little room for nature in a country where so much of the land is built on or used for farming. Helen Briggs reports.
The air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, all rely on biodiversity, the variety of all plant and animal life on Earth. But biodiversity is dwindling fast because of us, with an estimated 1 million species at risk of extinction. The UK's no exception. It has just 53% of its biodiversity left, well below the global average of 75%, according to a new study from the Natural History Museum. Researchers say there's little room for nature in a country where so much of the land has long been built upon or used for intensive agriculture. And they warn the world's lost so much natural biodiversity, we risk an ecological meltdown, a future in which we can't rely on nature to provide the energy, food and timber we need.
Biodiversity is more than something that's beautiful to look at and that we love. It's also what provides us with so many of our basic needs. It's the foundation of our society. We've seen recently how disruptive it can be when supply chains break down. Nature is at the base of our supply chains.
The team from the Natural History Museum hope their data will help global leaders meeting for the UN Biodiversity Conference next week. During a week of virtual talks hosted by China, negotiators will thrash out plans for protecting nature over the next 10 years. None of the targets for the previous decade were met, and scientists say this is our last best chance for a sustainable future. Helen Briggs, BBC News.
The conservationist and TV presenter Chris Packham says a suspected arson attack outside his home won't stop him from campaigning against hunting and animal cruelty. The broadcaster said 2 masked men set fire to a vehicle at the gate of his home in the New Forest on Friday morning, causing extensive damage.
I will, of course, just carry on, because I have no choice. I cannot and will not let your intimidation sway me from my course. And that's why I don't really understand why you would do it.
The boxer Tyson Fury has defended his WBC heavyweight title, knocking out American Deontay Wilder in their latest clash in Las Vegas. The American had been hanging on for several rounds before the British champion ended the fight in the 11th round.
There were some shaky moments in there, but I never lost faith, and I continued on, and I carried on and persevered, and I got that single punch knockout. And, you know, as soon as I landed it, I jumped on the ropes. I knew it was over. He wasn't getting back up from that. It was a great trilogy, and you need a good dance partner for trilogies, and Wilder's been a good dance partner, but there was no rematch clause. It's actually done. Wilder is done. There's no more Deontay Wilder.
That's all from us for now. The next news on BBC One is at 5:45 this afternoon. Bye-bye for now.